Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host of my new podcast, Pause and Rewind. I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now. But how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes, and what makes our guests tick. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind, where I am chatting to Paul Carruthers. Paul is a nurse consultant at Gender Plus, the UK's first gender hormone service to receive CQC registration for treating trans and non-binary individuals aged 16 and over. And Paul is deeply committed to correcting false narratives about trans healthcare and being a massive trans advocate generally. And he does this through so many different ways. But one way that he's managed to do this is through being crowned Mr. Gay Great Britain last year. And it was brilliant to watch Paul's campaigning to kind of nail that title. And he's leveraging it to champion trans rights, as well as advocate for same-sex parenting through adoption. And we chat in this episode about Paul's own experience about adopting and his gorgeous two children. Outside of Paul's professional and advocacy work, Paul is a busy dad and balancing his responsibilities with passion and dedication. You're going to hear all of that in this episode. So excited for you to listen to it. Let me know what you think and enjoy. Cheers. Hello, Paul. Thank you so much for joining me for Pause and Rewind.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. It's very exciting.
Oh, well, it's so good to see you. I have been following your work, particularly kind of your Mr. Gay Great Britain campaign, and you've been smashing it. Tell me, what does the world look like for Paul Carruthers right now?
It's a busy world, that's for sure. Yeah, you mentioned Mr. Gay Great Britain. So I won that last August. And when I first entered it, it was something I never ever thought I would do. And I saw it on socials and I just thought, "Do you know what? Why not? I'd lost my mum during COVID and it had such an impact on me. She was only 56. It was a really quick battle with bowel cancer is what she had. And it just really made me look on the world differently after I lost her, and especially during COVID. So when this came up, I just thought, "Do you know what? Actually, I think I can do this. I'll certainly have some experiences." So it was quite full on. There was lots of categories to try and win, 7 categories in total. But I really liked the charity fundraising aspect of it. So yes, and I went on and won, which was yeah,
Amazing.
just totally surreal. And it's been really busy since winning.
And what does it mean to be Mr. Gay Great Britain?
Do you know what? I think the title is you do what you want with it. I think Stuart Hatton Jr. won Mr. Gay a long time ago, Mr. Gay World 10 years ago, and he took over the competition. And when he won, he tells a story of how he stood in his underpants in a nightclub, loads of drunk guys leering at him, and that was kind of the competition. It was who looked pretty in a pair of pants. And he wanted to change that, which is why he brought in the charity fundraising aspect and looking for people that would be advocates, I guess, for the LGBT plus community. So that's why I entered, and since winning, I'm a big trans ally. It's what I do in my work,
Mhm.
and I've been able to use that title to further. My mission really is to combat the sort of incorrect negative narratives that are out there, especially with regards to trans healthcare, because that is my job. I'm a nurse. I've worked in trans healthcare for nearly 10 years, and as I'm sure you're aware, anybody listening to this, it is just so toxic at the moment, and it's just full of lies and misconceptions. So yeah, my mission with the title, yeah, I can go and have some great photo shoots in my pants. That's still there, you know.
Fully, why not?
Bring it on, bring it on. But at the same time, whenever I'm being interviewed for any press or media, that is the thing I always bring into the conversation. So I'm really lucky to be able to do that. And the competition has enabled me to do that. So I'm really thankful.
I mean, I obviously know you through both lenses, so through Miss Great Britain, but also your other work as well. What are the biggest myths then the challenges around trans healthcare for anyone listening that might not be up there in terms of their knowledge base?
Well, in particular in relation to youth, I think the narrative that's out there and certain media outlets, Daily Mail, would have it that we would see a young person, say, "Oh, you're trans, here's your medication," and
Mm,
that is just so incorrect. There's a big long waiting list to get through to see a professional, lots of assessments, and not all young people will be suitable for medication. So, in the Gender Identity Development Service, which was the NHS England commission service, only around 30% of young people ever came forward for medical treatment. So there's just this big misconception that we're there as doctors and nurses just dishing out drugs willy-nilly, and it really isn't the case. So that's one misconception that we have to myth bust. And then, unfortunately, politicians have got involved in trans healthcare of late, and that's something that really annoys me, that they're making decisions without consulting the experts that are in the field. So I think it's important that us, as the experts, go out there and actually put the facts out into the world.
yeah. With the general election coming up, what would you say to people? How can people make a difference?
Well, I think they should look at whoever they're just going to vote for, they should look at their history. I mean, the Tory party are outwardly transphobic, and I just find it really, I just can't believe it's happening. You know, if you were to change trans for any other protected characteristic, put gay in there, put BAME, put disabled in there, there'd be an absolute outcry. But these sort of trans grabbing headlines by our current politicians are just really toxic and negative. So go and look at what your party that you're going to vote for are doing. There's not a great choice.
No,
At the moment, I think I've always voted Labour. I'm disappointed that they are on the fence with regards to trans rights. I've got to believe, as a Labour supporter, that they're going to be better than the Tories, but only time will tell. I think they're grabbing headlines, thinking that it will appeal to certain people who are going to vote for them. So, you know, Rishi coming out and saying a man is a man, a woman is a woman, that's just a fact, and all this kind of nonsense is just it's just really sad, and it's sad for me, and I'm a cis man, and I recognise my privilege, but you know, I can only imagine what it must be like to be trans right now in this country.
absolutely. But your role is supporting trans youth, trans people through that journey. But I guess on the flip side, one thing that I like to talk about is the joy that comes from that journey as well. There's such a tendency to focus on headlines and stats and barriers, but actually it just loses sight of joy.
And there is absolute joy. I can't tell you what it's like when I'm in clinic. I always say, I wish these politicians or these journalists could just come and sit in a clinic with me and
Yeah.
just see what it's like. These young people and adults, I work with all ages, just absolute joy getting to the point that they're going to have their medication, you know, and affirm their gender identity. We've got people crying, big hugs outside the clinic room, you know, us clinicians cry with them. It really is lovely. And then we see them for their reviews and they're just thriving,
Yeah.
absolutely thriving, which is not what's out there at the moment. That's not what the narrative is, but they're thriving despite what's going on in the world.
Oh, well, listen, let's hold on to that narrative. I love the work you do, but for now, Paul, are you ready to pause and rewind?
Let's go for it.
Yes, let's do this. Take me back. Tell me all about little Paul.
Well, little Paul is the eldest of five children, and my parents had me when they were 17, so very young. In fact, you can see me in the wedding picture. My mum was heavily pregnant. That will tell you a little bit of a story about why they got married so quick.
Lovely.
And they had all five of us by the time they were 25, which is just
Wow.
crazy. I mean, condoms did exist back then, so who knows? But yeah, so for me it was a chaotic. loving childhood. I was responsible for my younger siblings. And I had a really happy childhood. And I know I'm really lucky for that. During my childhood, probably like a lot of gay men, there was certain women that were just really important to me, and that was my mum and my two grandmas. And I'm lucky to still have one grandma with me today. So they were really important during my childhood. But it was just a big, big, crazy family. We were all in a small town in Northumberland, aunties round the corner, grandparents round the other corner. So yeah, it was fab. It was fab.
Amazing. What are some of your favorite earliest memories, or perhaps a favorite anecdote that you've been told about yourself?
Well, I remember my granda Charlie saying that the sun shines out his arse always because I was such a people pleaser. I was quite shy, nodded along, didn't push the boat at all. That's definitely changed as I've gone into adulthood, so that's for sure. But yeah, so and some of my happiest memories are just, no mobile phones, no technology, going out with my mates and being out all day. And I often think, did I even eat lunch? Like I just remember going off for a whole
Yeah.
day in the summer, and I don't know how we knew what time to come home for, but we did. We were always home for tea, or dinner for anyone that's down south. Um, and yeah, so just really fun memories of growing up in a little coastal town in Northumberland.
That's gorgeous. And yeah, crazy. Like you just to go out all day without no money and just be entertained.
Yeah, just crazy. Yeah, just I've got no idea what we did, how we fended for ourselves, but we did, and we're all still here to tell the tale, thankfully.
Yeah, there's very, very, I mean, I'm an 80s kid and it was just very, very different.
Yeah.
What were you like at school?
Shy, very shy. Typical gay boy. All my friends were girls.
Same, same, same.
Yeah, really shy, and there was bullying. I'm lucky it wasn't bad bullying, it wasn't physical, but it was that usual drip drip effect of, are you gay? Are you gay? Oh, your friends are Paul, that must mean you're gay.
Right.
And I think over time that does have an effect on you, and certainly even now at 42, I still get anxiety if there's a group of teenage boys walking towards me.
Yeah.
Even nicest group. I'm lucky to live in a nice area, but it's still there, and that's from that school experience of just boys just not being nice to me, I guess, for being gay. I was quite effeminate. I didn't play sports. All my friends were
Yeah.
girls, so I did stick out really as a gay boy.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, so much of that resonates with me. Would you say that was secondary school that mainly started?
Definitely secondary school. Yeah, yeah. So where I was, we had a first, middle, and high school. So high school was maybe the age of 14, 13,
Right.
14. But absolutely, yeah, it really started at that point.
Yeah, same, same. And I don't really talk about it as much as I probably should. I'm a similar age, I'm 41, and it really has had like such an impact on me.
Yeah, yeah, it
It,
does. I think childhood has such a big impact, and we may not have big, big, huge trauma, but there is a lot of trauma there for queer people. And
yeah,
there's the saying, isn't there, that we don't grow up as our true authentic selves, and our
yeah,
adulthood is then trying to unpick that to try and make our way to our authentic self. And I think that has probably taken me well into my late 30s to now to really not give a crap about what people think.
yeah, same. And I just write, I work for We Create Space, and I just wrote an article about like I discovered running and fitness and exercise a lot later because as a kid, those spaces weren't for me.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Having had that experience then, what were you thinking of the world at that time? Because for me, I know I thought it was just a pretty like kind of cruel place.
I thought it was cruel, definitely, and it wasn't for me. I talk about a happy childhood, and it was a happy childhood, but adolescence and teenage years, I felt claustrophobic by that small town. There was nobody that acted like me. I'm sure I wasn't, but I was definitely the only gay in the village. Despite not being out, I contested, and I had girlfriends, and I tried, and
Yeah.
I had sex with girls, and I desperately, desperately wanted to be straight. And I think the sad thing is, at that time, if there'd have been an option for some form of conversion therapy available to me, I might have even looked into it. That's how desperate I wanted to be straight and not to be gay, which now I would never change being
No.
gay. I love being gay. I love our queer culture. I love everything that it's afforded to me, and I wouldn't swap that for the world. But at 14, 15, 16, it was very different.
Yeah. Yeah, I just used to just not I just didn't really know what to do with it because there was nothing I could you couldn't change it. When did that start to shift? When did you start to kind of like work through those feelings of maybe like internalized shame around your sexuality?
Do you know, for me, and it's a bit of a cliche because so many people say it at our age, but it was Queer as Folk. I
Oh,
remember, yeah, just watching Queer as Folk. And again, it's a story that many, many gay men tell, going off and putting it on in secret, volume
yep.
really
Yep,
low,
yep.
remote control in my hand, thumb over the red button to turn it off in case anyone
Yeah.
walked in. Watching that, and I wasn't far off the age of Nathan, I just was like, wow, there's actually a world out
Yeah.
there. Because of course, we didn't, I feel so old now saying this, but we didn't have the internet. I couldn't, to me, there was no other world outside of my small town. So seeing that and seeing Manchester and Canal Street was just wow. And it just made me think, actually, maybe there is something out there. So around that time, I was then planning my university choices.
Yeah.
And it was then moving away and going to university that the world opened.
Which uni did you go to?
So I went to Leeds Uni to study children's nursing. I did want to go to Manchester, but I was offered Leeds and I was really taken by the city and I accepted
Yeah.
and the rest is history. I've remained in Leeds. I love the city.
It's a gorgeous city. I've not been for a while. I love Leeds. But similarly, when I got to London and I was out in Soho all the time, it was just life changing.
Yeah.
I came into my own little bit. Sixth form college was a little bit different. Like it was a bit more open, but still, it took me a while to think, oh, okay, cool. I've got this. It was queer as folk for me as well, but it was also I think it was This Life. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
This Life.
yes, yes.
Yeah, those two shows were my awakening.
Yeah, yeah. And that was our awakening in terms of seeing what else was out there.
Yeah.
But sexual awakening, there was no internet porn. So seeing those sexual experiences going on in Queer as Folk and This Is Life, I can remember a hot scene there with a kilt. But yeah, it
Yes.
was yeah,
The 30, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It really was an awakening. But yeah, my sixth form college was good, but I was still at that stage desperately trying to be straight by having
Yeah.
male friends, deepening my voice, being aware of the way that I walked, um,
Yeah.
going out and despite really not liking lager, force myself to drink pints because that's what the lads did. When all I really wanted was a Bacardi and Coke or an Alcopop. Yeah, so it was only, and when I came to uni, I was like, I'm going to go to uni and I'm just going to say I'm gay. No coming out. I'm just going to go and be gay. And that didn't happen either. I
Right.
came, I came straight away and was so that internal shame, I just couldn't say the words.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky well, I was unlucky and lucky. So I was put in a dorm with some lads and they were really quite homophobic. And actually, that was the most homophobic abuse experience I've ever had. So they were putting loads of salt in my food, banging on my door when I tried to sleep, calling names through the door. And actually, I met one of them about 10 years later in a gay bar.
Oh,
Um, who
yeah.
stood straight and apologized and said, we were really nasty to you, weren't we? And I was like, yeah, yeah, you were. But so around that time, the girls that I became friends with said, look, come and move in with us. And I lived on someone's floor for a couple of months. And they said, oh, we're going to go out for a night. So I said, okay, let's go. And we were in a gay bar. And I didn't realize it was a gay bar. So they knew and they were trying to help me. But I just really freaked out. A guy came on to me. I was just, what's going on? Why have you done this? I was really angry with them and went through a couple of weeks of quite poor mental health, I guess, to the point of then coming out. But again, like a lot of people, it was I'm bisexual because I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I could fully say I was gay. And then I came out and quite quickly I embraced that because of the love and support that I had with my friends who remain my best friends. And let's just say then I began to sow my oats.
Okay. Well, and that's pretty traumatic experience actually to be happening at university when you don't expect that.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And it was just really subtle. They never really did it to my face. It was when they were drunk and I
Right.
was in bed and I had to lock my door because I was quite frightened of them. Not that I thought they were going to physically do anything, but I just really it was just toxic masculinity,
Yeah.
drunk men. I just didn't want to be around it. It made me feel really uncomfortable. And yeah, looking back, it was quite traumatic. And I think if I didn't have the girls. I probably would have quit uni and went back home.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Same throughout our lives as gay men. It's often the females, women in our life that make the massive difference and that show up and they become your biggest cheerleaders. And I know for me in turn, it's spurred a lot of the work that I do around violence against women, girls, gender equality, because it's my way of showing back. How much of those experiences have led you to the Paul that we see now and what you're doing out there in the world?
I think, I can even feel myself tearing up there as you're saying that because they are my biggest cheerleaders. When I won Mr. Gay Great Britain, they campaigned for me. They were there at
I
the
bet.
final. And I just think I've never really thought about it, but wow, what a full circle. They actually did more for me at that time when I was 18, 19 that I think they even know about. So I think over the years, they've given me a lot, and I know I've supported them through, that's what
Yeah.
would happen over 20 years of friendship a lot as well, and we're biggest cheerleaders to each other. And this year, I'm going into Mr. Gay World, and they're more excited about it than what I am. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I'm a huge fan of the
Yeah.
of the females in our world that look out
Yeah.
for us,
Yeah.
despite them
No,
being cis and straight. And although often my girlfriends, I say you're more gay than what I am, they're camp men and women's bodies, a lot of them. So, but they love it. They love it all.
that's it. And we get to become their cheerleaders as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's beautiful. Tell me about nursing. What prompted nursing?
I think, as I say, growing up with, eldest of five, lots of cousins, I was always around children, and I really wanted to work with children. So it was either nursing or teaching. Um, do you remember the program Jimmy's,
Yep.
which was based in Leeds, which again was one of the reasons why I came to Leeds. I remember watching that program, just being really excited about it and thinking, yeah, I think I'm going to go and be a children's nurse. So I worked hard to get whatever grades I needed, and then yeah, came to uni and went into nursing. And I've done various jobs. I've worked, in the hospital working with children with heart defects, working with children who are disabled. I then went on and specialised in safeguarding and working with children who have experienced abuse of many different ways. And then teenage sexual health, which led me then around a decade ago to then working in trans healthcare with adolescents.
That's amazing. Looking back, did you think that would be the obvious route you took?
Not at all, not at all. And it was just by chance that I was in a meeting with regards to a patient of mine that was also accessing a trans service. That a nurse there said, "We've got a job coming up. I think you'd be great." Because even at that meeting, I was still, waving the trans ally flag because this person was having issues at school. And I applied and got the job, and I've never looked back. I honestly can't think of any other job that I would love as much as what I do, despite how difficult it is to work in this field.
We tapped a bit onto the joy that you experience. What are the other big things that you love about it?
I just love that everyone that works in this field come into this field for the right reasons. Everybody firmly believes in trans healthcare and that it should be accessible to all. So I love that. I love the sense of community for those that work in it. And I just love working and helping trans people. I know they have so much battles out there. So if I can help in any way possible, I will, and I'll go above and beyond. And I love that satisfaction, the thank you notes we get, it's just really beautiful and seeing that we're helping people be their true authentic selves, which looking back, what I've just talked about with my childhood, if I had somebody there helping me, then great. So maybe that's why I'm in it because I had those experiences and nobody would think we're as fuck. So if I can be that for somebody, then that's great. Life goals.
Did did your parents think that you'd ever turn out to be a nurse? What did they make of your career?
My mum was a healthcare assistant, so I guess I followed in her footsteps in a way. My dad, no, he was like, really, I don't really know any male nurses. And my dad's being great about me being gay. I had lots of fears about coming out to him, and I thought he'd be a typical bloke, and I'm going to be disowned. And I'm really lucky that I wasn't. He was really supportive, but I don't think he was. Hugely supportive about me being a nurse, and I was the only person in my family, the first person rather, to ever go to university. So that in itself was a culture shock.
Yeah.
Everybody who does manual labor in my family, my dad has a carpet shop, which my brother then followed into, and I think he thought that's maybe what I would do. Although I'm sure throughout the years of bringing me up, he knew that wasn't going to happen. But my mum was really proud of me, as were the rest of the family. Just going to uni was something for them to be really proud of.
Yeah. We're often as queer people going against the grain, right? Because that's exactly the same for me.
Yeah,
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 never I don't understand what makes us go off in a completely different path or just a different way of existing. It's
yeah,
really strange.
yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, I really did go completely off piste compared to all my
Yeah,
family.
yeah,
Really, yeah, yeah. I think I was just desperate to be something else and something that I wasn't at that time.
yeah.
I wanted the bright lights of a city. I wanted a career. I wanted the affirmation of doing something that was worthwhile. And that's what brought me into nursing.
Oh, you really are. You really are. Let's talk, on the subject of parents, let's talk parenthood. You know,
Yes.
what's it like being a dad?
Oh, that is probably the best thing I've ever done was adopting me and my husband. So I've been with my husband over 20 years, and he still remembers our second day of me saying, by the way, I want to be a dad. And him just going, okay, that's a bit full on. And I knew at that time that I was going to adopt. It was just something I knew, and maybe it was because of being part of a big family. All my siblings, aunties, they all have children young. So I knew it was something that I wanted to do. So when the time was right, we decided to go and look into adoption just after we got married. Well, it was only a civil partnership when we got wed. And that brought us to our first son. And he was 9 months old when he came to us. And it was just gorgeous. It was gorgeous. He came to us in the January. We had an amazing few months. And in the July, we got a phone call from the social worker to say his brother had been born. And it was as flippant as, do you want him? It was just, he was in the hospital, and would you like him to join his brother? And of course we said yes. Um, but with my youngest, we knew there was going to be some likely complications because he was born very, very premature and very sick. But we said yes, and yeah, we've got two boys, 13 and nearly 12. So we're entering the adolescent teenage phase, which let me tell you is fun, fun, fun.
I can imagine. And what are some of the, in terms of kind of like your own upbringing, what are some of the like things that you're recognizing that your parents used to do in yourself that perhaps you wasn't such a fan of? What are you enjoying most about it?
I try to be, I'm like, oh, my parents were very much the parents. And I'm like, I'm going to be the fun dad.
Okay.
I'm going to like sit down and go, how was school today? Have you got any girlfriends, boyfriends? But actually, that's really difficult to do because children are, you are their parents and there
Yeah.
need to be those boundaries. So at times I find myself, slipping into what my parents were like, quite strict, routines. There's absolute strict routines in this house, dedication to homework, being respectful. I mean, all the good things. But first went into having kids. I was like, oh, we're going to be best mates. We're going
Yeah.
to, and that time will come. And they are like my little buddies. We have a right laugh together. But I can see the way I was brought up about how strict the house was, our boundaries, being respectful to people. That is absolutely me to a T with the boys. So hopefully they'll be two nice young men.
Oh, I've got no doubt they will be. There's lots of talks about family makeups looking so different now, and I think that your family, you're representative of that. That families look different these days. Um, what do you think people? What do you think are some of the barriers around people accepting family makeups that are different? Is it just that it's just we're in a het normative society? Do you think that's probably most of it?
I think so. I think this, yeah, het cis normativity is rife, despite people not thinking it is, an unconscious bias that's there. But we're quite lucky. We've n never experienced any homophobia towards us as parents. We've had certain questions and certain naivety, but I think we have to afford people to make mistakes.
Yep.
And help educate them. I don't ever penalize people in this cancel culture that we're in. I think people, if it's coming from a good place, people are entitled to make mistakes. It can be annoying. So at the beginning, it was like, well, who's going to be the mum? I'm like, well, there isn't a mum. There's two
Yeah.
dads. But I got that. It was like, well, who is the maternal figure? And that
Yeah.
was me. I took the two lots of paternity leave. So I was like, well, so I just sort of reversed it back and said, if you're asking who's the more maternal one, as in the stay-at-home parent, that's me. But again, it wasn't that I was going to cancel them for asking it. So we've been lucky and
Yeah.
really good schools that they've gone to, and the boys' friends come round and they just don't bat an eye. They don't bat
No,
an eye.
kids don't though. That's the
Yeah,
thing. Kids
yeah,
don't.
yeah. There's two dads. I mean, I'll never forget one of my boys' friends was here and he walked by and it was our wedding picture. And he was like, "Oh, your dads are so cool. I wish I had two dads." So yeah, it's lovely and now I think my eldest now he's in high school. I think he's a little bit more aware.
Yep.
And unfortunately this thing still exists where people say that's so gay,
Yeah.
for something that's bad or negative. And for somebody that's got well either gay themselves or got gay parents, that has a different meaning to them. So we have to sort of talk to the boys about this and make them be prepared for homophobia, I guess, because we're not naive that it might not happen to them, that there may be negative conversations to them in school about having two dads, just like there is for lots and lots of different reasons. So we just make sure that we educate them and give them the appropriate responses.
I think so. And I think with those conversations, as you said, they're not easy to have those conversations, right? We had Lady Phil as a guest on a couple of episodes ago, and we had a chat about having to talk to her daughter about racism and such. So I think those conversations they need to be had.
Mm.
It's just they're not the easiest.
They're not, and for children that might have experienced trauma, like a lot of adopted children, it's revisiting trauma, I guess. So you've got to be really careful. And my youngest, he found it really difficult when he asked, what does homophobia, although he said, what does homophobia mean? He thought it meant a fear of homes. I was like, no. And he was really upset and he just didn't understand. He said, but why would people not like gay people? He just didn't understand it. So those conversations can be difficult. My eldest's a bit more worldly, he gets it. But TV now is great for visibility and
Yeah,
representation. So, we watched
yeah.
what's it called? Heart
Heartstopper.
Heartstopper,
How
yeah,
did
with
you
them.
feel? You referenced Queer as Folk earlier, right? How did you feel watching Heartstopper? Because I went through this little bit of resentment and thinking I'm really not enjoying this, and then it twigged why I wasn't enjoying it. It's because we never had it.
Yeah, yeah, the same. And just sat there watching it with my boys, it was just amazing. And these
Yeah,
characters that were openly talking about being gay or bi, trans, the boys were just watching it and we were like, have you got any questions? No, they just got it.
right.
Yeah, so I think having that now on our screens is key. Visibility really is key. Not just, you're not just for queer people, but anybody that's associated with queer people, such as the children of queer people, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, I did, yeah, the same resentment. I was like, oh, why didn't we
yeah.
have something like this? But
And
yeah, it's
now I
great that
love
it
it.
exists.
I
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
love it now, like
yeah,
such a fan.
yeah.
We're shaped by our failures as much as our successes. Was there a moment in your life today where you thought, where you look back and think that didn't feel great at the time, but ultimately it led you to where you are now?
I think it's difficult. I think looking back, it's not a failure because I think a lot of people did it, certainly 80s people. I think this desperate desire to erase my queer identity is something I look back on and just think I really wish, I hadn't have done that. And to the point where I had such internalized homophobia that I was probably partaking in homophobic narratives, potentially even homophobic bullying of other gay people. So I look back and I'm ashamed of that. And I know that I did that to protect myself and to try and take the attention away from me. Oh, Paul, you're gay, you're gay. Oh, bums against the wall. Here comes Paul. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That person is that
Right.
kind of thing, you know. So I look back and there's shame associated with that, but also I know that that's what I had to do to protect myself being a
Yeah.
teenager, and maybe that's why now I'm just such an ally and advocate for the queer community, you know.
And that leads me, beautiful segue to my next question was actually is around like why put yourself out there the way that you have? You've already kind of like, you were a nurse working with the trans community. What was that next step that encouraged you to think, I'm going to go for it and I'm going to really try and make the world a more inclusive place by doing this and, entering Mr. Gay Great Britain? What was that moment like?
Think life has afforded me lots of privileges, white, being cis, incredibly supportive family and friends, and working in the job that I do. I see that that doesn't exist for a lot of people. And I'm not shy anymore. I'm not that shy gay boy. I'm
Yeah.
quite happy to use my voice for good. So I think that's what's happened. And probably looking back to that gay boy that was really shy and had such internalized homophobia, really disliked himself, that I've now got an opportunity. And, to be a role model, I'm out here, I'm working in trans healthcare, Mr. Gay Great Britain. I'm married, I've got two children, and look, that sounds all great and rosy. Lots of challenges come with marriages and having children.
Yeah,
So
of
I'm not
course.
saying my life is perfect. But I've got an opportunity to be a role model. In the queer community, there's so many different ways of being gay. And I'm
Mm.
only one of those, I'm not, people can be what they want. But within what I am, I recognize that I've got privilege and I can be a role model and I can use my voice for good. And that's absolutely what I want to do, especially when it comes to being a trans ally.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Talk to me about someone that shaped you the most along the way.
Oh, don't make me cry, Neil.
Tears are all good.
I think my mum, and it was her birthday yesterday, actually. So she's on my mind a lot at the moment. I think she was just an amazing, amazing person. She was pure good, and she really did shape me, into being the person that I was. And when I came out of being gay and everything that I've done, from saying I want to adopt, she was just my biggest cheerleader. And even, I could have killed my family and friends when I was backstage from Mr. Gay Great Britain. The amount of texts I got through that said, "Your mum is here." And I
Right.
was like, guys,
Let me, yeah.
there's piles of concealer under these eyes. Do not do this to me. So she did, and other women in my life, my two grandmas, just absolute matriarchs of the family and powerhouses. And I think as gay men, I don't know what it is, we just really resonate with powerful women.
Yep.
Um, and I think those three women in my life absolutely have shaped me. And as I say, my female friends that helped me when I first came out. So it's the women in my life that have
Yeah.
really shaped me to be the man that I am now.
I love that. Does happiness and success look and feel how you thought it would?
Oh, I don't I don't know whether I've still got success. It depends what you weigh it up as. Happiness, yes, I really wanted to be part of a family and I really wanted to have children. So I think in that way, I've achieved that. Success, who knows? There's still a long way to go. I've left the NHS and I've helped with some colleagues set up a private practice to help trans people, and there's lots and lots of barriers and obstacles with that at the moment. And I think if we can get that where we want it to be, which is to be able to reduce fees, offer means tested appointments, then I think in terms of success and work success, then that would be a win-win.
Brilliant. What are you most proud of to date?
I think my boys, definitely. I think, with adoption and anyone that's either adopted or have adopted themselves, their paths would have been very, very different had they not come into our family. And look, they'll create their own path as well. I've got no doubt about that. They're two powerhouses themselves. When you look at the nature nurture debate, it's like, wow, I can really see where their nurturing has come through, and that's from me and my partner. But there's parts of them that is absolutely part of their identity, and we don't take that away from them. But I'm really, really proud of them, and I think I'm helping to shape two beautiful young men that'll go out in the world. And who knows what sexuality, gender, anything they'll be. I'm pretty sure at the moment they're going to be two straight boys. And I think they'll go out there and be great, great allies to the community, as well as just being lovely, lovely people. So I'm very, very proud of them.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Oh, go for it.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
So I'm not a great reader. I like an audiobook, but the last book that I read a really good book on holiday, but the book that really stayed with me, and it's not something that's really profound, but it just really took over my imagination, was Life of Pi.
Okay, love that.
I just absolutely loved that. In terms of movies, I think really I prefer a TV series, and we've talked about Queer as Folk, and the other one by the same writer is It's a Sin.
Yeah, gorgeous.
I think that was a great series, and I think I was brought up around the time of the HIV epidemic, and I think I was fortunate to be just outside of the 80s growing up, but it still really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And in terms of albums, look, I'm an absolute pop female lover, so I can list all the best pop albums. But my sister got me Moby's album 18 when I went off to uni, and that is an album that I can listen to when I'm depressed, but I can also listen to when I'm happy. It just takes on different meanings every time
Yeah.
I listen to it, and I still listen to it regularly.
Okay, that's Madonna Ray of Light for me. Like,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Big fan of that. Life of Pi, loved the book, not a fan of the film.
No, so disappointed, so
Yeah,
disappointed. Not what I imagined in my head at all,
yeah,
so I was very annoyed.
yeah. But I know about the sparking your imagination part of that book. Like, you
Yeah.
the tenseness that, yeah, no,
Yeah.
brilliant book. What's the saying you live by and one that you'd put in the bin?
Well, it's the same saying because it's really cringe. It's you only live once.
Okay.
But I completely live by it because of the story I told about my mum, to the
Yeah.
point that I've got it tattooed across my rib cage. But I also love it for how cringe it is. So I used to always say, after my mum died, was a running joke, my family and friends. YOLO, YOLO, shopping spree, entering Mr. Gay Great Britain, booking a holiday, YOLO, to the point that people were taking the piss out of me. So it's one that I'd put in the bin because it's so cringe, but one that I just absolutely live by. If any opportunity comes my way, I'm totally YOLO.
You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah,
We're gonna fast forward in a sec because I want to hear more about Mr. Gay World, but I guess that's all part of the YOLO as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
YOLO, love it. What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
Well, I've talked about adopting. That's been a great adventure. But other adventures was traveling during my 20s with my now husband. We got engaged on a beach in Thailand, drunk after skinny dipping. My clothes got stolen, but we got engaged nevertheless. And we had some great travels with our girlfriends. So I think, I could tell stories of, all different things. But I think those travels in my 20s, I've got great memories there.
Amazing. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Shy, dedicated, made it. Yeah,
Do you ever still see a little bit of shy Paul coming through?
I do. And when I am about to do any public speaking, I have total imposter syndrome.
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm like, how am I here? In fact, how am I managing this trans healthcare service? How am I doing lots of things? So, but my father-in-law said to me once, well, do you know what the opposite um of imposter syndrome is? And I was like, no. And he said, a narcissist. He's like, so it is absolutely fine to have imposter syndrome. It keeps you grounded. So I embrace it, but I have it in lots of aspects of my life. And I think that little shy Paul is still there, and it kind of now links into this sort of imposter syndrome. I think that'll always be there. But then after what my father-in-law said, I thought, well, actually, yeah, I mean, the opposite then is loving yourself, being and loving yourself's great, but being like an absolute narcissist isn't. So I think having a bit of imposter syndrome keeps us grounded and makes us work hard.
Think it also shows that you care, right,
Yeah,
about what you're putting out there.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
Let's fast forward a bit. What exciting things do you have coming up?
Well, we've mentioned gay world.
So excited. I'm so excited for you.
Oh my God, it feels so surreal. So winning Mr. Gay Great Britain automatically puts you into gay world. So I'll be representing Great Britain this summer. Um, for the first time, Great Britain are hosting it.
Okay.
Um, Slightly annoyed, all of the previous contestants, such as David Allwood last year, got to go off to South Africa. I'm just getting a train up the road. Um, but lots of blokes coming from all over the world. And it's a really intense sort of week-long boot camp with judges watching you every single day. So we
Wow.
get to meet MPs where we have to do sort of media pitches, sports challenges, and then it all sort of ends on the final where there is runways. And I've found a designer that is making my national costume, and I am very, very excited about that. I'll give a shout out to them. They're called The Other Giselle. They're a drag queen. Um, and I can't give anything away because I don't want any of my competitors to listen. But let's just say I'm having to learn to walk in heels
Okay.
for the
When
first time.
when is the week? When is the week?
So it's the end of August and it ends on Bank Holiday Monday. I think that's the 26th of
Okay.
August. Public votes will open, so I'm hoping everybody that lives here in Great Britain will vote vote for their own. I know that's one of the rounds is a public vote. So yeah, I mean it'll all be on my socials and the Mr. Gay Great Britain socials, so it'll start gearing up quite quickly.
Oh, I'll be following that avidly. I'm so yeah, buzzing for that. I'm so
Oh, thank
thanks
you.
for the sneak peek as well. Like,
Yeah.
what brings you joy?
I think, my children bring me joy. They really do. I think, I'm just feel very, very lucky. I always wanted to be a dad and having them at home, despite them being little shits, probably 90% of the time. But they do absolutely bring me joy. And my work and my friends, the queer community, I just, as I said before, desperately, desperately did not want to be gay as a teenager. And now I just love it. You know, we just spoke about Hoopla there. I didn't get to go, but I've been to the big weekenders. And whenever I've been anywhere that's part of a big queer community, that absolute joy that you feel to be your authentic self is just amazing. And I wouldn't change being queer for the world.
Same, 100%. And I just want to go back, I also suffered really badly with bullying, and you just want to go back and say to your younger self, it's all going to be all right. And
Yeah.
it makes all it's a sad, it comes with a sadness, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, oh, if I could have had a window into a time machine and saw me now at 15, yeah, I mean, wow. But I guess that's what we get to do now as, we're older queer people. And I don't mean older as in, that old, but we can kind of hopefully, be a bit of a beacon for light and say to people that it does get better. It really does get better.
Yeah. I'm not quite at calling myself an elder stage yet.
No,
Um,
no.
yeah.
It's
But
taken me a long time to get used to people calling me a daddy, and now I embrace that. But I draw a line at that.
I guess for you it has a different meaning.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah.
I held on to twink a bit too long.
I'm working with Dr. Paul Taylor Pitt on an event series around midlife queers. And it's for 40 plus. And I'm embracing the term baby midlife queer. Like I'm all
Oh
right
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have that. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. What takeaways do you have for anyone listening wanting to do something to help make the world a more inclusive place?
Just do it. I think putting your voice out there, I think people underestimate their own voices and their own experiences. And we've all got our own life experiences. You know what I said before, there's so many different ways to be gay, to be queer. I am only one of that. Not everybody wants to be married, have children, work in trans healthcare. There's so many different ways to be queer. And I think having your voices told is really powerful because there is little shy gay Pauls and Neils that are looking to their future, that when they look out and see their voice being told, their story being told, that I think it's really powerful. So just go out and do it and ignore the imposter syndrome. We all have it.
Yeah, exactly. Storytelling is so powerful.
Yeah.
Final question. Do you have any words of advice or encouragement or wisdom to share with anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
I think I think what I said before, that it gets better, is definitely words of advice that I would give. We spoke there, didn't we, about if we could have looked, met our past selves and told them. So I think for everybody that I meet, when I meet my patients, I try to tell them it's really difficult out there at the moment. I'm not taking that away from you, but things will get better. Just try and stay with it and take one day at a time. And that's the advice that I give to a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. I'm so glad we got to spend this time together. I am wishing you all the luck for Mr. Gay World, and thanks for
Thank
being on
you.
Pause and Rewind.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. I adore the way that Paul is using his platform to show up for the trans community. It is amazing that he's able to do that through his professional role in trans healthcare, but also through leveraging his title as Mr. Gay Great Britain, and the way that he's going to carry on that as he campaigns to for Mr. Gay World. I'm going to be cheering him on all the way. Do get behind Paul, give him a follow, support him, because he is doing amazing things. It was amazing to hear about his journey into parenthood as well, and the way that he is raising two young boys to be respectful allies and advocates as well. And yeah, just hearing his talk about parenting, and the fact that kids today, they're not carrying those bullshit prejudices and stuff. They're just getting on with life, and how education and bringing them along on the journey, it's just going to make for a more inclusive world. So yeah, just what an amazing dad you are as well, Paul. Fantastic to hear. Loved hearing your appreciation for the female supporters in your life. You know, I know that that's a massive reason why gender equality is so important to me in the way I show up, because you know my biggest advocates through life have always been the women around me. And yeah, I think that's definitely a commonality. We had lots of commonalities there, as I said in the intro. And you know, particularly around kind of like bullying and shame, and Paul talked a lot about tackling his own internalized homophobia. So yeah, we share so many common experiences as queer people and as minorities too. So yeah, I hope that you took a lot away from Paul's conversation. I loved spending time with you, Paul. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, share, all that, and I really appreciate it.